This original article was a piece of confirmation that we got from Amazon Studios in which the studio boss, Jennifer Sulky, I think it's Sulk, admits to censoring Lord of the Rings of Power reviews over points of view that they didn't support. But I want to more or less pivot away from this article in which she tacitly confirms what we already knew to be true, which is that if you're a gazillion-dollar company and you've just put $1 billion into this project, you want as much good press as possible. And I want to make it more about the fact that this show has become literally so awful that I can almost sympathize with the need to censor when you make a product this bad. That's a joke. I'm kidding.
At the beginning, though, it was such an overreaction because the first 2 episode premiere was not bad.
Yes.
But they overreacted and preempted the hate to the point where they were like Streisand affecting it.
Yes.
And like the Amazon had to completely restructure their system of ratings and reviews just to protect the reputation of this show, and then in doing so actually made it look worse.
Which is odd. It's funny because they didn't learn their lesson. The same thing happened in 2019 when Rotten Tomatoes restructured their entire rating systems to protect the awful Captain Marvel. Okay, it's not awful. The incredibly forgettable and pointless Captain Marvel movie, which everyone was gaslit into seeing and being told that you have to see this, otherwise seeing Avengers Endgame won't make any sense to you. Spoiler alert, that wasn't true. And the funny thing about this was, at that time, the Rotten Tomatoes CEO was a former executive from Disney, if I remember correctly. And they restructured their entire rating system so that you had to be, they introduced what were called verified ratings, so people couldn't leave a rating without being a reviewer on the site, which means you had to set up an account for it and everything.
Does that mean you have to go under your legal name as well?
I don't believe you had to go under your legal name, but you had to probably fill that out in the paper. Like you probably had to put legal first name, second name, but you could still have a screen name. So they went the same route here, but the problem is that was its own Streisand effect, in which a lot of people are like, this is insane.
Well,
it's just a movie.
Captain Marvel is bad if you're trying this hard to silence criticism of it.
And lo and behold, here we are 3 years later. Nobody's learned any lessons. We are into episode 7 of the Rings of Power, and we see the aftermath of the eruption of Mount Doom into the Southlands. And there is this entire bit at the beginning that is supposed to be played for deep emotional resonance. There's just one problem. You don't give a crap about any of the characters in this show. Therefore, all of the attempted emotional resonance means nothing because you don't care if anything happens to these people.
This may include spoilers of episode 7
Oh, they don't
if
care.
any of you care.
They do not
the
care.
slightest bit.
So
I mean, watching those arguments between Durin and his father, where he's like raging about how Elrond is a brother to him, like, I genuinely couldn't give less of an F about their bond.
The most important through line you can understand here is that there's still several characters I don't know the names to. There's still, every time they try to play these scenes for deeply and emotional, it falls flat. There's one scene between, I'll call her Galadriel. It's Crapladriel, but Galadriel, and Theo that should have happened
At the beginning?
5 episodes ago.
You mean at the beginning of the episode when? Okay, so to explain to you guys, she gets up from the ashes after Mount Doom explodes everywhere, and she starts wandering around, finds Theo calling out for his mother Bronwyn. He can't find her, and she goes up to him and just asks, "Are you hurt?" And she has this look on her face that she hasn't been able to muster before for some reason.
That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one where they're crouched, hiding. And he's blaming himself.
Episode.
He's blaming himself for everything that happened. And she goes into detail about how she lost her husband and the war was so long ago. This would have been a fantastic bit of character development that might have helped me give a crap about her if you had actually done it in the first or the second episode.
Now, are Lord of the Rings fans who know the lore about Galadriel supposed to already be aware that she lost a husband?
Then that's
war?
a problem. Even if that's true, that's a problem anyways, because then you're making a show for normies while presenting evidence or information that's only knowledgeable to people that know about the source material. You're literally setting yourself up to fail.
Once again,
okay?
like trying to have it always and then having nothing.
There's also another through line here is that all women are virtuous, strong-willed, courageous, and ready to fight, and all men are absolute boners that have not an ounce of self-respect, an ounce of courage, an ounce of anything other than fear, reservation. It's
Halbrand
awful.
was out for the count. I don't even know.
He was out for the count.
Doing.
The Harfoots, all of the women Harfoots have to convince the men Harfoots to go into battle. They have to. Sadrock Burrow's wife has to convince him, and even he's like that. Disa, who has to do the same thing with her husband. Every woman character has to convince a bunch of pathetic, ineffectual beta males to act, and it's annoying.
Is this like some kind of morality play reflecting modern society and how like the female producers of this show really feel about men today?
The funny thing is, this could have been done deftly and with a certain amount of nuance if the man was ready to go into battle but had his reservations. But they don't do that. They don't want to because they're scared. And then the woman has to be like, well, you need to stand up for this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's bull.
Yeah, they should do it with one character. The dwarf guy, probably. And then, you get the point made that there are men like that without having to destroy the concept of male masculinity.
All of the characters, exactly. Disa actually gave fairly evil vibes when she's talking about how her and her husband are going to become the rulers one day. I got evil vibes from her there.
Were we supposed to?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't know why we should be on their side, but then Muriel and Galadriel are allied out of nowhere against Muriel's father's wishes. And like there's just something weird about like fathers in this show. I really don't understand it. Like Durin going against his father's wishes, Muriel going against her father's wishes, Galadriel going against the elves' patriarchal system's wishes for her. Which is why she left Valinor.
Yeah. Also, if you want to see an acting clinic put on by the only one who seems to know what the hell he's doing, the actor who plays Elendil pulls more emotion out of his scene losing his son than any other actor has managed to do.
So glad we lost Isildur, though.
Yes, so glad. Yeah, thank God Isildur's gone. But that guy pulled more emotion in that scene, and then later when Muriel, who is now blinded, is calling out for him, his facial expressions there are better than anything Galadriel has managed to do in 7 episodes.
He's pretty good.
He's good. I also want to point out here that the other scene that I found particularly offensive, Theo goes into the tent and he thinks his mother is dead. He thinks Bronwyn is dead, and he's looking at this bloody tarp. And then we have what I can only describe as a director who said, imagine that you have a heartfelt, emotional reunion, but on a Middle-earth version of Xanax. There is not an ounce of actual emotion in this scene.
When Bronwyn comes back.
Yes, she comes back. She's like Theo, and his mom's alive, and she tries. He kind of tries, but there is zero emotional.
It's like it was done in
resonance.
one take and no thought of retaking it.
And then to make it worse,
she's just not believable as his mother or as a mother in general.
I thought she did well in the first episode. That has since faded.
Galadriel seemed more motherly to Theo than Bronwyn did.
Yes. In their scenes together, she seemed to have better acting chemistry with this kid than Bronwyn did. And then we have it was almost more offensive when the Harfoots were doing when Nori and Poppy are like, we're going to warn him because it's the right thing to do, and of course the men are all like, we can't do that, we'll die. It's awful. It's just awful, guys. I gave this I'm not the person who crapped on the show from the beginning. I'm not crapping on the diversity. I'm crapping on the show because it's awful.
I didn't notice the theme of men being incompetent as much as you did, but I'll grant, like, I was paying less attention than you were, and you were admittedly like not paying that much attention because the plot is just degraded so much. All I saw was people arguing, people looking into the distance, with like faces that were void of emotion, and more metaphorical, waxing poetic language.
Okay, I'm also going to read you a line from the end of the episode. Whoever wrote this line should be fired and banished from Hollywood forever. I'm kidding, kind of.
I mean, maybe.
When we're in the aftermath now of the fallen Southlands, and Eddar is walking around, right? And it's brisk, it's red, and he goes, it's no longer called the Southlands. And then I kid you not, Waldrig says, "What should we call it instead, Lord Father?" It's literally a teed up line, as if something from like a sitcom, so that he can call it Mordor.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's so bad.
And then in the most, like, if you didn't get it the first time,
they put Mordor on screen.
They had they had the Southlands on screen, like the word the Southlands.
So bad.
And then had that burn out and then get replaced with the word Mordor on screen. In case you, dumbass, didn't realize it the first time.
That could have been a 1 to 3 episode arc of the transition of the Southlands into Mordor. It's one of the most... It is a character in the show and should have been treated with that respect, in my opinion.
Also, I want to. There was a line at the beginning when Isildur dies, and I kid you not, this is what I mean when I'm talking about, like, there's not an ounce of believability. This woman who looks like a high school guidance counselor says she goes, "He's gone, soldier." It's the word. I immediately had to I had to rewatch it, because as soon as I heard that, I got so angry that it was that bad that I had to like walk away and come back. This lady, she looks like a high school guidance counselor. All the women look like high school guidance counselors now. And that's the problem, right? They didn't get imposing women that actually fit these roles, right? Galadriel, maybe a little bit.
She has a little, like a sternness.
She's got a stern. The rest of them all look like they pulled them from like office meetings and said, "Would you like to be in this show?" So there's
they are random.
There's no sense of actual gravity to any of the scenes, because it all feels like worse than dinner theater. It's disturbingly bad for the budget.
And all of these sentiments about Rings of Power and like approaching its season finale, how far the plot has degraded and how badly they've misused their budget,
and just how little they've actually done.
Like, that makes the censorship of the negative reviews all the more egregious.
Yes.
And I want to especially like call attention to the fact that they put a 72-hour delay on all user reviews posted to Prime Video. 72 hours is long enough for you to not feel any emotions anymore about what you just saw. And also just to forget that you watched it entirely.
The point is that you should review things right after you watch it. Professional reviewers watch it a couple of times, take notes, and collect their thoughts. That's not what you go to the customer reviews for. You go to the customer reviews to get people's impressions of something immediately after they watched it.
Is it that they leave a review and then 72 hours later it goes live, or you have to wait 72 hours after the show goes up before you can review it in real time?
72 hours after the show is up.
Okay, not just that, but when you really think about it, like the amount, like the number they kept touting was 25 million views in the first 24 hours. Mm-hmm. It's because then there's no narrative to counter it. Like, yes, it made this many reviews, and then it got this many awful reviews, because they can hold off on letting people see those awful reviews until later.
Yeah, so one YouTuber analyzed this situation. Ryan Kinnell is his name.
Yeah, from RK Outpost.
He said, right now, I think they're showing something like 44 reviews, which is still laughable. It's laughable because these are going all the way back to September 2nd, September 5th. There are thousands and thousands of reviews out there for this thing, but they're so carefully controlling and manipulating this to try and manage the backlash and do damage control. It's so effing disingenuous. Like, there's no logical reason that there would only be 44 reviews.
It's really funny that they'll put this much money and time into this, but not the money and time into just making a good show.
Yeah.
like,
all of this thought and energy is wasted.
Because they couldn't just make the show that people wanted.
I also want to address one part of this article that I think is a little bit presumptuous. There's some like bad math from another YouTuber that analyzed the situation. He said at one point the video titled "The Earth Needs More Elf Fans." Well, okay, he was talking about like one of the trailers for Rings of Power, and in his video titled "The Earth Needs More Elf Fans," he said that the trailer had 60,000 views and 506 comments. And then when it got up to 309,000 views, it had less comments. It had 287 at that point. So they were deleting a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then he continued to say, if you do a ratio of views to views and comments to comments, you would have expected 2,567 comments, not 287. But and then he said that means they've deleted 89% of all comments that anyone made. That's not really valid because people are going to comment on it the absolute most when it first comes out, not in the days following it getting posted.
Yeah.
But still, they're obviously doing massive damage control, and there's more thought and energy being put into
curating
the PR
the material,
damage control than actually making something people like. That you wouldn't have to do this.
People are getting paid to delete comments.
Yeah.
That's where their budget is. They're pushing budget.
Or they just have like keywords that they won't allow you to write in there.
It'd be really funny to see like a spreadsheet of like where all the money goes, and it's like to the censorship bureau. Like it's like all their money's going there. So all this because they couldn't make a show with memorable characters, with dialogue that actually fit and didn't sound over the top. And sets that didn't look ridiculously cheap when it wasn't CGI, garbage.
So everything we're saying, it's not going to get expressed in their reviews, in the customer reviews, because they're making you wait until you forgot about
everything
watching
about it. Yeah, and that's funny thing is that happens too. Like there was stuff that I ended up going back last night and we reviewed the movie Amsterdam today for timcast.com. I had to go home and write down my initial thoughts, otherwise I wouldn't have remembered half of that stuff. Like when I went back and re-looked at it today, the first 3 things I wrote down I obviously remembered because those were the ones I felt strongly enough about to write down first. But the other observations that I had made in my head would have been long gone in my brain by just the next morning, let alone 70
and just your feelings about it, whether they're positive or negative. You completely forgotten about them. It's even proven that if you're angry about something, if you wait 10 minutes, it'll be gone.
Yep. I actually take that approach to almost everything. Like a lot of people could save themselves a lot of arguments on the internet if they just waited 10 minutes to post that meme or that infographic or that article headline that they don't actually read, but just read the article headline. If you just waited 10 minutes, that anger, that indignancy that you're feeling will often dissipate a little bit and give you room for a more even-keeled thought process. And that might tell you to still post about it, but then it's something you care about very deeply. But if not, then it's probably not something you needed to mention anyway.
That's the outward defense for the 72-hour hold on reviews.
Yeah.
But because it's 72 hours instead of 10 minutes.
Yes.
I mean, I would maybe understand if you have a hold for the hour after the show goes up,
so that they can't review before it comes out.
Before it comes out, before you've watched it in full.
Yeah.
That maybe I would understand.
I wonder if they can do that by time zone.
Maybe.
Like that'd be interesting to find out. Like they have to hold it.
But they're not
time.
interested in making sure people give it a fair shake. They're interested in controlling the narrative.
Yep.
That's it.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.